What is up, YouTube? Welcome to the video. So I've been doing short form social media for a little while now, and I just started doing some long form content. I wanted to do the long form stuff to kind of let people see me a little bit more, learn like my personality and get a little better insight into my life rather than like thirst trap, look at my abs on Instagram type of stuff. Build more of a connection basically. And addiction was a very big part of my life. I don't know if it was a huge part of my life, but it definitely was like a pivotal moment in my life, a few years. And I wanted to share my story because I remember when I was first trying to get clean, listening to other people's stories online, and a lot of them helped me. They were very motivational to hear that these people went through the same struggles, felt the same things I did, and now they were X amount of years down the line and their lives looked a hell of a lot better. And I was like, yeah, well, that's good for you, but that's probably not going to be me. But something told me to just keep moving forward. And here we are. My life is a hell of a lot better these days. And if you're going through some stuff right now, whether it's addiction or maybe your life just isn't where you want it to be, I'm here to tell you, it's possible. Anything is possible, dude. If I can be where I'm at today, you could be president of the United States of America, okay? Because I was one lazy loser son of a bitch. So I don't really know exactly how to tell this story, where to start. I definitely am going to jump all over the place. I probably will have to go back in time and forward in time, and hopefully you'll be able to keep up, but I'll try my best to stay on track. So I don't know where to start, but addiction for me started, it started probably before I was born. My family is full of addicts. Literally, my grandmother was an alcoholic addict. Her brother was an alcoholic. My mom was an addict. And in my mom's generation, there was like, she had one sibling and like 7 cousins, 6 cousins. There was 8 of them total, Like, so my grandma's generation, and then the next one, and then there's me. So the one above me, 6 out of 8 of them were like hardcore addicts. Like, probably worse than I ever was. And luckily, I didn't get, quite as bad as some of them. Some of them have, well, one of them has passed away from drug use. My mom passed away from cancer, completely unrelated. She was clean for many years before that happened. And then a few of her cousins are clean now. Some of them still addicts, whatever. But anyway, tons of it in my family. So I grew up around it, seeing it, hearing about it, and I hated drugs when I was a little kid. Like, they pissed me off because it's weird when you're a little kid. I feel like parents and adults, they don't think you know as much as you know, or they kind of know that you do know as much as you know, but it's weird. You can't really put yourself in the shoes of kids. Like, to adults, it seems like they don't know anything, right? But like, I knew when things were going on with my mom, and I could see the pain it caused her, and I don't know, I just sensed how much she hated it, and it made me hate drugs. And I was like, I'm never gonna do drugs, And then my whole life, my mom told me, like, please never do drugs. I will literally do anything if you never do drugs. I will cut off my arm if you never do drugs. And so, like, I planned to never do drugs, I guess, when I was a little kid. But that doesn't always work out, the way you want. And man, it's hard to think of my first opiate experience because opiates were the drug for me. Like, that is the only one I even have a problem with. Like, I can drink. I haven't had a drink in like 2.5 years. But the only reason I don't drink is because I hate hangovers, and it seems like a complete waste of time to me to like feel a little good for one night and then feel crappy the next morning and then waste a whole day. So for me, like, alcohol, like, I just don't really drink because of that. But opiates, I'm like, keep that away from me. At this point in my life, you could hand me a bottle of Oxy and I'll throw it right in the toilet. I don't care. But opiates were the drug. That was the one where you try it and you just feel like everything is okay in the world. You are loved. No one is judging you. And I would say I felt that for the first time when I was 12 years old. Went to the hospital, had this crazy stomach bug. So we bought some tamales from this lady, you know, she had them in like a cooler. And she's like, you want to buy some tamales? And we're like, yeah, okay. And the day after we ate those tamales, that is when I had like the worst stomach bug ever. And I was in so much pain. And eventually my mom took me to the hospital because the pain was so bad. And they were thinking like it was my appendix, or they were thinking it was my appendix. So, you know, they made me like drink that green slime and I threw it up immediately. And then they did the scan. I think they got it down at some point. And then they did the scan. It wasn't my appendix. They couldn't figure it out, whatever. But I was in so much pain that they were like, let's give him some morphine. And my mom was like, no, definitely don't give him morphine. I could see the worried look on her face, which at the time I didn't know why she was so worried about them giving me medicine that would make me feel better. But looking back, I know exactly what that worry on her face was, because she had so much experience with addiction that she was like, I don't want this 12-year-old kid to feel what heroin feels like, basically, because that's what opiates is, you know? And so they gave it to me. And that was that first time I felt that warm, fuzzy feeling. And I remember always as a kid, right? So I was 12 years old, so 6th grade, something like that. And always through school, growing up, I always like felt like I didn't belong. We like didn't have much money growing up, so like we get drove into school in like an Oldsmobile or like some crappy old car that they bought for like 300 bucks. And it was always embarrassing for some reason, even though the other kids didn't care at all, you know. But in my mind, everyone was looking at me all the time. Everyone was judging everything that I did. So I just had anxiety, like all day, every day, was worried about being judged, worried about being cool. And when I got that first shot of morphine, I was like, oh, like no one actually is judging you. That's all in your head. You're totally fine, you know? So that was my first experience with it. And then I think, you know, from there, anytime after that, like 12 years old on, like anytime I saw Vicodin, I don't even know how I knew that they were the same thing. I don't know how I figured out that like Vicodin, Oxy, like they were all the same drug. And anytime I would see them like in someone's medicine cabinet, I would steal them, which I feel like is the story of every opiate addict ever. So I would steal them, take a few, you know, feel good for a few hours, but I would never take them consistently because, you know, just find a few and take them and it was all good. And then in middle school, I smoked weed for the first time. Me and my buddy would always smoke weed. In the weed, I never even liked weed. I don't know why I would smoke. I'd smoke it like every weekend with them. And it just made me paranoid as shit. And I was just up at night worried that my mom was gonna come in and see that my eyes were red and be like, you're in trouble. And that did happen a few times, but I never even liked it. I don't know why I smoked so much. But, you know, weed wasn't really a big deal. That never turned into anything crazy. Then freshman year of high school, I broke my finger in PE playing flag football. You know, I reached for the flag and this thing was like, it just was like sideways, dude. And so go to the doctor, they had to put pins in it. And then when they put pins in it, that hurts worse than breaking it. So they prescribe you opiates. I think they gave me Tylenol 3, which is codeine and Tylenol. So I had like, you know, 30 of those or something. And then the first day I took those, I was itchy. And I guess I didn't realize that opiates made you itchy yet, even though I'd done them a few times. But I was like, oh, they make me itchy. So I tell my mom they make me itchy. So she calls the doctor and she's like, these make him itchy. Can you prescribe something else? So they prescribe Vicodin. And when they prescribe you another opiate, they don't say like, bring us back the old one, you know? So I had 2 bottles of opiates, you know, like 5 milligrams of codeine and 5 milligrams of Vicodin. And I stayed home from school for a few days. I think the doctor told my mom not to let me go to school while I was taking the pills for some reason. But I was just sitting there at home. They were in the drawer, so every few hours I'd just go grab a few of them. And I would take, you know, 2, 3 at a time when you're supposed to take 1 at a time. And I went through both of those bottles in like a couple weeks. And my mom was like, did you take extra of these? Like, why is it empty? I'm like, no, I don't know. The rats ate them, And obviously I took them all. I think that was the first time that I started to feel some withdrawals because I had taken them for a couple weeks in a row. And then I went back to school, and I just remember like wishing I had more pills because I felt like crap, like clammy, cold sweats. Wasn't quite like throwing up or none of the like soup, just bad anxiety and cold sweats and just wishing I had the pills. And that went away after a while. And then when I was like 16, got my first job at a movie theater, started making some money, and a family friend who was, someone on like disability and kind of just not working and kind of sponging off the system a bit. Maybe they really were disabled. I don't know. But they would get prescribed opiates. They were the what were they called? Norcos. They were the Norcos. So there were 10 milligrams of oxy and 325 of acetaminophen, I believe. Every month they would get their refill of that. I would start buying a few pills a day, or like as many as I could, until they would run out. And then I would kind of go through a little bit of withdrawals because I would have them consistently for a couple of weeks and then not have them. And that went on for a year or two. And then, my mom and stepdad found out about it, and they threatened the person, and they were like, first of all, they were going to call the cops, and I begged them not to call the cops because I felt bad. Like, they were going to call the cops on them, not on me, on the person selling me a 16, 17-year-old pills. They were going to call the cops on them. I was like, don't call the cops. Like, I'll just stop, whatever. I'm sure I did buy them a few more times after that, but at some point it stopped. I think I just got more busy with life, and I think senior year of high school, I started dating my now wife, and I was happy, and I wasn't thinking about using drugs really. And so a few years go by. I get married 3 years after high school. I was 21, she was 20. We start our life. I was a personal trainer at this like little ghetto gym called Thrash? No, Bang? I forget. It was like this little orange and blue. It wasn't Crunch, but something like Crunch. And I was a personal trainer there because they were like, you can make $16 an hour. And I was like, whoa, that's the most money I've ever heard of in my life. I'll come work there. But really, it wasn't $16 an hour. Really, it was $8 per 30-minute session. And I wasn't booked up every 30 minutes. So ended up making like not that much money, And we had our first apartment, and I needed to make more money. And I wanted to be a personal trainer. I loved fitness since I was 14. I started working out at 14. And even though that drug use was intermittent in there, I was always, as soon as I worked out at 14, we had this little apartment gym, right? Told you I'd go back and forth. We had this little apartment gym. It had dumbbells up to 50 pounds, had a lat pull down machine, mixed with some stuff. It had like a leg curl, leg extension thing. I had a bench, had some treadmills, a curl machine, and a chest press machine. Every single night, like I did one workout, and after that, I was in there every single day. Like I didn't skip a day for at least the first year. And then on year 2, maybe I skipped one day. Like I worked out every day. I would run a few miles on the treadmill. I would lift weights. I would do like whole body after that. Probably less legs, but whole body. Abs between everything. Within a few months, I was like ripped, and I loved fitness. That was like my thing. I think I recognized pretty quickly that I had pretty good genetics for it because only after a couple months of lifting and just eating as little as possible because I didn't know anything about nutrition yet, I was ripped up, had some deltoids, looked pretty good. So from there, I was just like, this is my thing. I'm going to do it forever. And I did. I stuck with that, consistently. So fast forward, I was a personal trainer, wanted to be a personal trainer, but it didn't make that much money. I was not interested in doing sales. I still had like tons of anxiety and wasn't great at talking to people. So sales was like out of the question. I was like, there's zero chance I'm going to talk to people and try to convince them to buy things. That is insane, dude. I'm not doing that. Which, if I could go back in time, learning sales would have been a real smart move as a kid, but wasn't going to do that. So I needed a job that could pay the rent consistently. So my mother-in-law worked at Farmers Insurance. So she had an Farmers Insurance. My brother-in-law, we were living with at the time because we got our first apartment together, two couples, got an apartment. He started working at Farmers a few months while I was personal training. And then they were like, there's another opening coming up. Do you want to get the job there? And for the first day, I was like, nah, I can't be in a cubicle. I'm a free bird. I need to fly. And my wife was like, well, guess what, Birdie? You're getting in the freaking cubicle because we need to pay the rent. And I'm going to school, and I'm not going to stop going to school because you're a lazy piece of shit. And I was like, all right, cool, good point. I'll go get the job at Farmers. So I got the job at Farmers, started working there. And it was kind of cool at first. I was like, ooh, a corporate job. Like, I can wear button-up shirts, and this might take me somewhere in life. And, didn't really like it after a while. I'm just sitting there all day and like typing on the computer and being stuck in a cubicle. But it was work, and there was moments where it was fun, and you get to talk to, you make friends across your cubicle, and it wasn't bad, right? But it wasn't what I wanted to do, and my life wasn't really going in the direction that I thought I would be at like 22 years old, 23 years old. And my mom, when I was a kid, my mom would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a millionaire. And she was like, that's not a career, you moron. And since you're so stupid you said that, you probably never will be a millionaire. But I don't know. I just always had big dreams, right? Because we grew up really poor, and I always wanted to like achieve a certain level of success to get past what my family was used to. I wanted to like, be successful enough that I could one day like buy my mom a house or take her on a vacation at least, even if I couldn't buy her a house. Just stuff like that. And I didn't want to struggle, and I didn't want my kids to struggle like we did, Like I didn't want to be like, oh, there's a field trip coming up. Can I have 20 bucks? And like, oh, we don't have 20 bucks, So I wanted, always dreamt of being more successful than that. In this like Farmers thing was okay. And I think there was maybe some prospects of getting to that point, but it didn't seem like it was going there, right? And so I kept training one guy, and this guy, at one day, he was like, oh, my friend said they could get some Vicodin. What is that? And I was like, oh, it's good. Get it. And then we took it, felt good. And from there, we just kept like slowly getting more and more, right? So we would, first we started with Vicodins, or maybe they were Norcos again, I don't know. And whatever, they had Tylenol in them, basically. You guys know if you know. They had Tylenol in them, so we're taking them. And then eventually they were like, oh, we have these Oxy 15s with no Tylenol in them. I'm like, cool, get those. Then we have Oxy 30s with no Tylenol. Get those, the blue ones. And it just escalated. And then within the first like year, it went from the 5s to the 30s. I went from swallowing the 30s to snorting the 30s to injecting the 30s, which you're not really supposed to inject pills, but you can. Trust me, you can. Not advice, but you can. And then also in Phoenix, Arizona, a lot of the blue 30s are fake, and they have fentanyl. I would say now definitely even more so than 5 or 6 years ago when we were getting them. And there definitely was times where we got the fentanyl ones, because there was one time where I injected a quarter of a pill just to like try not to be a little bit sick, and I passed the fuck out, dude. I was like, if I did that whole thing, I would have been like OD'd for sure. Like would have called the ambulance and shit. Luckily, I never OD'd to that point where I had to go to the hospital or anything like that. But anyway, it escalated. I was injecting, barely working out anymore, eating shit, getting fat, looking sickly and weird, like dark circles under the eyes, getting skinnier, getting fatter, track marks on my arms, which my mom noticed first because she was used to it, their one cousin was a heroin addict, and she knew all the signs to look for. She like, she would see me and be like, bro, you look like shit. What are you taking? I'm like, nothing. And within a A couple times of saying that, she's like, "You're lying, bitch." Like, you know. And then she found out somehow. I admitted it after some point. You know, there's probably like enough needle marks on my arm that I can't be like, I had a rash or there were bed bugs or something. So there was no lying out of that. So her and my wife, she never knew anything about drugs, right? And I'll never forget the day that my wife found out that I was using. So we go to the dog park one day, and I'm trying to act normal, but I'm starting to get sick, and I don't remember, I had at least one blue pill with me in a syringe. And so I make up some excuse that I'm gonna like go get us snacks at the gas station or something. I go to the gas station, I get some snacks. You gotta cover up your lies by doing real things. You can't be like, I'm gonna go get snacks and then not come back with any snacks. So you gotta go get some real snacks. And then I come back. I think I went to the gas station, I put the pill in the syringe, put some water in there, and like let it dissolve. Sometimes I would just sit there and let it dissolve. Sometimes I'd crush it up and then, for faster. But if you let it sit long enough, it would dissolve. And then I drive back to the park, and I'm sitting in the car in the parking lot of the dog park trying to inject, and my freaking veins were like messed up at this point. They weren't, I was never hydrated. I wasn't taking care of myself. So it took a little longer to find veins at this point. And I'm sitting there not paying attention, just like so focused on trying to get this needle in my arm. And the car door opens, and it's Lily standing there. She's just looking at me, kind of like, what the fuck is it? Like, that is not who I married. And I felt like so much shame in that moment. Like, I'll never forget that. And I'll always feel bad about that moment, or really just, becoming this lying, sneaky little drug addict when she intended to marry a man that was like gonna build this good life with her and take care of her. So I'll never forget that moment. Anyway, after that, it was maybe a couple weeks, and they convinced me to go to rehab. At first, I was like, I'll get clean on my own, like, I won't use anymore, and just like kept using, obviously, because that's how it works. So they convinced me to go to rehab. I get the leave time off of work, and I go to rehab for about a month. And I was like, hearing all the stuff in there about AA and higher power and all the AA stuff, right? You got to work it if you want to work it or whatever. I don't know. I never even really got into AA until this day. But go in there and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna change my life, whatever. And I get out and I'm feeling good after, went through the worst withdrawals of my life, first of all. Because not only was I using the oxy, fentanyl, whatever, I was also taking Adderall, because I got an Adderall prescription because I was like nodding out all the time and I needed to like stay alert at work to not like fall asleep in my chair and get fired, or to like not crash in the car and die or kill someone else, which would be even worse because I was the piece of shit at the time. I was on Adderall, and then I also was taking Klonopins because, if I run out of oxy and I start to go through withdrawals, I need something to like keep that anxiety down a little bit. So I was coming off of the benzos, the oxys, and the Adderall at the same time. So that was probably the second worst withdrawals of my life, because I had never come off of benzos before, and I'm pretty sure that like heightened the experience quite a bit. And then the Adderall, luckily I was coming off the Adderall actually, because the thing is, when you're coming off of amphetamines, you can sleep better than if you were just coming off of opiates. If you're just coming off of opiates, you ain't sleeping, bro. Like, you'll sleep for 10 minutes at a time. You'll just be shivering, anxious, be like, please God, let me sleep for longer than 10 minutes. But when you come off the amphetamines at the same time, hey man, you get to sleep a little bit. So that was helpful-ish, but still terrible. And, finish the detox, go to the inpatient, finish that, get out, and then there's like a 2-week outpatient program where you go for like 5 hours a day, but you get to go home at night. And then another 2 weeks after that where you go for like 2 hours a day and then go home at night. Within the first week of being in the outpatient, they drug test you like every few days. They do random drug tests. I failed the first drug test. Like I immediately got out and I had every intention of not using again, but I got out and got high within a couple days. I was like, you know what my problem was last time is that I was doing it every day. But if I just did it like on the weekends or like twice a week, then I won't go through withdrawals and it won't be so hard to like keep up with my life. That was the problem. I was doing it too much, you know. I needed to just do it like a little bit. So got high that first week. They put me back in the inpatient. I didn't want to go back. I was like, no, like I'll be fine. And they're like, you're going back, bitch. Like you're fucked up. So you're going back. I went back for like 2 more weeks into the inpatient. Got out this time. Finished the outpatient thing. Didn't use again. And I was good for a whole year. So my wife was in nursing school. I was working at Farmers, and she was working at Best Buy like part-time. And we're still a little tight on money. So, I had a car payment at the time. It's Honda Civic. I'd gotten a car payment when I really should not have gotten a car payment. And so money was tight. So I went and got a job at a pizza place delivering pizza at night to bring in extra income, help support us. And it was cool because it was keeping me super busy, you know? I'd go to Farmers in the day and then I would deliver pizza at night. Still wasn't really like working out at this time because I was so busy. And when you do get off drugs, I feel like your personality, motivation, anxiety levels, they don't go back to normal for like a long ass time. Even when you're like a couple months sober, you still don't feel quite like your normal self. Your anxiety is still a bit higher. You're still a little more likely to be depressed. So it wasn't motivated enough to like eat good, work out, and work 2 jobs, but I was working 2 jobs. Did that for a year. About a year after I went to rehab, I relapsed again. Called up the old friend, was like, let's have some fun, use some pills, you know, but this time we're just gonna do it a couple times a week and we're not gonna go off the rails and it's gonna be fine. You know, we won't inject, we'll just snort it. It'll be cool. So that one phone call turned into my 2-week binge, the hardest binge ever. 2 weeks straight, just went hardcore. I was still delivering pizzas. My vision was double. I should not have been driving at all. Very, very lucky. I don't know, you know, something kept me safe. Let's just say that. Bro, it's like trying to drive with your eyes crossed and closed, okay? It was bad. And at the end of the 2 weeks, we run out of drugs and the withdrawals start to kick in. And I don't remember the exact date that this occurred, but I remember I was out with Lily. We went to an Old Navy and we went to some other store. That is when I started to get sick. I think I had maybe a pill that morning or something, but not nearly enough. Started to get sick. We go home. Her stepdad was supposed to come over and help us mount a TV that day, which I didn't remember because I didn't pay attention to shit at all. So by the time we get back, I'm so sick. I'm like, listen, this is what happened. I've been using again for the last 2 weeks. I'm getting sick. There's no way I can help your stepdad hang this thing up. He's gonna know something's up with me. And she was pissed. She was like, I don't give a shit how bad you feel. You're gonna go in there and help him hang this stupid thing up. And then when he leaves, you're gonna leave. So she kicked me out. I called my mom, told her what happened. And I go to my mom's house and stay there for a couple weeks. And Lily was like, maybe in her last year of nursing school, I think. And she was like, I can't deal with this bullshit right now. I need to focus. I need to finish school. You know, you're not gonna drag me down in life. So stay with your mom, do whatever you want. Just don't come back here and don't bother me. And we're getting a divorce. And I was like, oh shit. So I go to my mom's, go through the withdrawals again. God damn, those withdrawals hurt. I'm like, you would think the pain of those withdrawals alone would keep you from using again, but they don't. They never do. Go through the withdrawals, just lay in the floor for, I don't know, a week straight. And these withdrawals were worse for some reason. I don't even know why. Probably because I wasn't coming off Adderall, so I couldn't sleep. But they were worse. Those are the worst ones of my life for some reason. I would say after the first 5 days, when I finally can like pick myself up off the floor and walk around a little bit, then I start telling Lily like, oh, we can't actually get divorced, you know, like you got to take me back. I'll do better this time, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, no, dude, like you suck. You're a loser. You're not going to drag my life down. And I think that scared me more than anything else scared me for some reason, losing her. Because in senior year in high school, we were together and we were attached at the hip. And I love her more than anything. So that scared me so much that I was like, dude, if you mess up again, she's leaving for real. Or she might even leave now. Like, I didn't even know yet if she was going to take me back. I was like, kind of thinking she probably would. You know, I feel like you always have that in the back of your mind when someone's like pissed at you. You're like, they need a little more time. Then they'll be cool. But it seemed legit. So I was scared as shit. I was like, dude, she's going to leave for real. And then what are you going to do? Be sitting around with yourself looking at your own feet? I don't know. Yeah, so that scared me. So finally, she did. She was like, you can come back, but if you mess up again, that's it, dude. Like, I will cut your head off. You won't even be around to get back together. So we get back together. I'm doing good. I'm still working at the pizza place. She finishes school. She graduates, gets her job as a nurse, and we're doing great. That was the last time I ever used. That was the last time I was good to go. So life starts getting better. She became a nurse. We saved up a little money. That first year after she became a nurse, I quit delivering pizza because I was like, this sucks ass. Like, I want to start working out and stuff again and not be delivering pizza. And our income combined was better at that point because she was a nurse. So we're doing better. We start saving up that first year. I think it was like 2020-ish. I was like 6 months clean, and that's when I took the picture, my transformation picture that I always refer to, because I remember that day. I woke up, I looked in the mirror, I was clean, you know, for 6 months. Life was going okay. But I looked at myself in the mirror and I was fat. You know, I was always anxious. I was depressed. And I was like, this is not you, dude. Like, you were never supposed to be such a loser. Like, you were the fitness guy. You were always in such great shape. You were motivated. You were gonna do something in this life. And I took that picture and I was like, dude, this is the day you're turning it around. Like, you're taking this picture so that you can remember this moment and look back and tell people, like, this was the day I decided to change, and I did. At that time, I was like eating a bunch of ice cream every day. I was drinking regular soda. I was eating out all the time. We're eating like Chipotle and Yogi's Grill and whatever, but not the good stuff, just like whatever we wanted. And I wasn't meal prepping, wasn't eating high protein, and I wasn't lifting, but the gyms were closed. So right around the time I took that picture, gym shut down, and I was like, shit. Well, I started eating better, and then I started jogging to the park. There was a park near our house, and there was like bars there. Started doing pull-ups, dips, push-ups, and listening to like fitness content and just really trying to get back in better shape. And then my old friend Danny from when I worked at LA Fitness, when I was 18, I worked at LA Fitness, and I met this dude Danny, and we hadn't talked in a few years at this point, but he hit me up on Instagram and he was like, I'm trying to work out more consistently, and I have some gym equipment in my garage. If you want to come work out with me, you know, we can hold each other accountable. So I started going to his house every morning at like 4:30, 5 a.m. because I had to log in for work at 7:30. So we start lifting every morning, working out together, start eating better. And from there, it was just super consistent. And I started getting back in shape. I'd say within 3 months, I had a visible six-pack again. It wasn't the best six-pack in the world, but it was visible. So I was losing body fat. And then I started slowly over the last 6 years building my physique up to what it is. But it was that day when I took that picture and I was like, this is it. Like, you are going to become the type of person you always knew you wanted to be, which was like a disciplined, successful person that's like does what they say they're going to do. Like, if you say you're going to get in shape, you're going to get in shape. If you say you're going to achieve X thing, you're going to do it. And ever since that day, I've just been super consistent. And my life has changed so much since then. And really just from that decision of like, now you're going to be disciplined. Like, think of how many people say all the time, how many times you've said in your life, I'm going to get back in shape. I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And then you do it for 2 weeks. You do it for a month. Life gets hard. Life gets busy. And then you stop for a month, 2 months, 6 months. And then over the course of 5 or 10 years, you look exactly the same or worse. Your life is in the exact same spot or worse. Really, if you would just make that decision and be consistent, your life could look so much different 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I've lived through it, and my life has changed so much. So I went from working at Farmers. That first year we save up. Danny, my friend, while we're working out, he's like, yo, I bought this house 2 years ago. It like doubled in value. I'm going to sell it and buy a new house. You should buy a house because like the housing market is going up. And it was 2020, I think, when we bought our first house. Yeah, 2020 we bought our first house. At first we had like 20 grand saved up, and we're like, I don't think that's enough to like put down on a house. He was like, no, like you don't even need that much. You need like 3 to 5% and whatever, you just can't buy that expensive of a house, but I'll put you in touch with my realtor. And he did, and we just like go through the process real quick, and we bought our first house. And it was in the ghetto. It was not in a super nice neighborhood, but it was a cool achievement. We were 25 years old. I was 25, she was 24. And we felt super proud that we had bought a house. And I felt super happy that I wasn't on drugs anymore. It had been like, a year and a half at that point or whatever. And I was like, man, our life is going in a good direction. Then I got a promotion at Farmers. And, it wasn't a huge promotion, but it was a promotion. So I was like, man, you're making progress in life. And I was still going to the gym every single day. I was still eating right. I was getting in better and better shape. I started posting consistently on social media. And eventually from that, I got like, one little brand deal at one point. I think Wild Chips wanted me to do a post with their chips. When I had like, I don't remember, like 50,000 followers or something like that. But it was growing and it was cool. And I remember I did the little post for Wild Chips and I got a little paycheck, and it was, I don't know, few hundred bucks. I don't remember. But I remember opening that paycheck and I cried because I was like, wow, like you were consistent. You decided to get back in shape. You were consistent about it. You started posting, and now you made some money from the internet. Like, that's crazy. And I think I just saw that it was possible, that I could eventually get back into like fitness as a career, and it could be even better than my current career at Farmers, and I would be happier and all these things. And it was just so cool to see how consistency and discipline started to bring the things that I always dreamed of in life. So from there, it kept building. I got, started working with Quest supplements for a little while, then Legion, and then we lived in that first house for 2 years, and then we decided it was time to move up. That was always a stepping stone house. Like, we had always been like, we're gonna buy a starter house, it's gonna go up in value, and then we're gonna buy another house, which we got super lucky because we bought in 2020, so it did actually go up in value, which like no other time, like the past, like the 15 years before that or the 5 years after that has that happened. But we got lucky, it did go up in value. We were making a little bit more money, so we're like, okay, we hate this neighborhood, let's move out. And when we first got married, we had always talked about living in this part of town that we currently live in. There's this new build community, and they were like, we got this move-in ready home, whatever. It just worked out perfectly somehow. And we ended up getting this house that we're currently in the neighborhood we always wanted to live in. The last couple years, I ended up leaving Farmers Insurance. And the craziest thing, like all these things of like being consistent, following your dreams and just sticking with it. It's so weird. And there's been these crazy like signs along the way that I'm doing the right thing, right? So I started the coaching business like almost 2 years ago now, right? So I started the coaching business and I was like, okay, whenever you make as much as you make at Farmers, you can quit Farmers and then you can keep going with the coaching. So I start the coaching, I get some clients in like the first month. And by month 2, I was like, okay, I'm making almost as much as Farmers, like it's gonna work out. It's been 6 weeks, like you're gonna be fine. There's no point in spending 10 hours a day at Farmers. Put all your energy into the coaching, into the online stuff. You know, no plan B. So I quit Farmers. I give my 2 weeks notice, and at the end of the 2 weeks, I log out of my laptop for the last time. I open up my phone, click on Instagram, and I had a DM from Gymshark. And it was like, hey, we like your stuff. Do you want to do our creator program? And it was crazy because Gymshark was like the brand I always wanted to work with. And I always held out for brands because when I started doing social media, as soon as I saw like I started getting a little bit of traction, immediately I was like, I'm never gonna just like scam people. I'm only gonna promote things that I actually like, that I would actually use, and that are just integrated into my life. I'm not gonna like try to just make these ads that are like ads, you know what I mean? Like if I'm wearing Gymshark at the gym and it looks cool and someone wants to buy it, they can use my code. But I'm not gonna be like, oh, you sell, necklaces? Yeah, let me do like a little necklace ad or whatever. So I was like, I'm only gonna do things that are integrated into my life that I actually like, that I would actually use. And Gymshark was the one like clothing company that I was like, I always wanted to just wear Gymshark all the time and like, that would be sick. And I had other weird little brands reach out to me before, like clothing brands, and they were all just like, I didn't like them that much. I was like, I'll just wait for Gymshark. But it took a long time. It was probably like 3 years into social media, and I finally quit my job. And that day, I get a DM from Gymshark, and I was like, that is so crazy. Like the last day that I leave my corporate job, I get the DM from them. Like it's so weird. It's like the universe saying like, you're doing the right thing, keep going. So anyway, here we are, 6 years clean at this point. My life looks better than I could have ever imagined. I don't know how to even explain it without sounding like I'm bragging, but I legitimately am just like living my dream life, and I'm so grateful for it. Like, I'm blessed beyond belief. I went through some hard times, got through them, and here we are, just with discipline and consistency. And that's really all there is to it. And I would say, if you're going through a hard time right now, or you're in addiction, or maybe you've been clean for a few years and you still feel like life isn't that great and you're not making the progress you want to make, just keep moving forward, man. It's just taking little steps every single day towards your goal. And eventually those little steps turn into a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, and you could get as far as you want to go by just doing the little things every day, staying focused, staying consistent. Eventually, you can get there. Thanks for listening. If you want to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button, like button, notification bell. I'm probably not going to do more addiction videos, just, day in the life vlog type stuff, whatever, fitness related. But I wanted to share this story because I know that stories of addiction and overcoming them and having a better life can help other people that are going through things. So I hope at least one of you, this will help. I'm sure it will. Thanks for listening.